Hello, and welcome to the Can You Survive 19th Century England classroom instruction video. This video is designed to be played in the classroom. There are moments, though, when the instructor should pause the video to help students with the game. So in this game, you're overseeing the fate of the Davies family in 19th century London. If you have played the Can You Survive the 17th Century England game, it's the same family, different time period. They have worked hard and are able to put 3 of their 4 children in school. Their goal is to help their children receive as much education as possible so that those children can move into the growing bourgeoisie and thereby earn more money in a safer environment and support their parents when they get old. You will be able to influence their fate by deciding when the children have to work and when they have to go to school. But resources are limited, so you'll have to be careful. To play this game, you'll need the following items, and your instructor may wish to pause the video to give them time to hand them out. The first item is the board. The board's a little complex, but please bear with me. It will make sense after you play a few turns. You also need individual cards. The parents, grandfather, and children all have health. If all boxes are marked, they die. The children also have education. The more boxes marked, the better. When they start, no boxes are marked, but they can gain boxes by going to school. Now, your group is overseeing the family as a whole. You're not playing a particular character. So to start setting up, Adam goes in the factory, and you make different money based on where you're at. Adam makes £10 when he's in the factory, and that's English money. I don't mean 10 pounds of steel, I mean 10 pounds of money. Children there only make 6, though. And in this game, you can move people around. So you start with Adam in the factory. Margaret and Anna both go into domestic service. The 3 other children, Elizabeth, Henry, and William, all go into the school. And Thomas goes into the house. Now, there are a couple rules. Thomas is either at home or in the factory. Margaret is either at home or in the factory. The children are either are going to typically be in school, but you can move them into the factory or domestic service to make them money. Thomas, though, as you can see from his picture, is an old man. He's sick. He's the grandfather. He can only be at home. He doesn't go to school, and he cannot work. So do keep those rules in mind. This game uses different kinds of counters. So in the upper left, that is a pound counter. That's English money. At the bottom, there's a 5-pound counter. So 5 of the ones in the upper left equals one of those. And then there is a luck counter. And you gain luck counters by answering questions correctly. So this game does involve some math. So please bear with me. The first couple rounds might be a little complex, but it will make sense as we go forward. But on the bottom left in the wages, please place a pound counter on the number 23 there. Right, place a 23 there. And that is the amount of money coming in. Right, that's your income, are your wages. And then place a pound counter on the number 21 in the upkeep section. Each person costs £3 to take care of, to buy them food, clothing, housing, that kind of thing. And there are 7 members of your family. 7 times 3 is 21. If you get a baby, that would go up by 3 to 24. If someone dies, that would go down by 3 to 18. But that represents expenses. And then place a pound counter on the number 3 in the school fees section. So for each child in school, they have to pay £1. So there's 3 children in school. That's why it's £3. If Elizabeth was to go from the school fee or from school to the factory, wages would go up by 6 and the school fee would go down by 1. Right? So wages would go up from 23 to 29. The school fee would go down from 3 to 2. And that might be necessary if you don't think your family's making enough money. But remember that the goal of the game is not to make necessarily a lot of money. The goal of the game is to get your children educated, right? So that's how we determine if you win or not. And then place 4 pound counters in the savings box. Your instructor may want you to have less savings to make the game a little bit harder, but the key thing is that when you have extra money, it goes there. And we'll come into more what those numbers mean later. So the next thing is that each turn you will draw 1 card as a family, and these cards do different things. Here's an example of a complex card, and that's the difficult pregnancy card. And basically, Margaret is pregnant and is trying to give birth, but it's not going well. And so you would roll the 20-sided dice, that's the dice in the bottom right, and add the number of her unchecked health boxes there. And she has 6 unchecked health boxes. You would add 6 to the 11, giving a 17. It says that on a 17 to 20, they both survive, but each loses 1 health. Now let's say, though, Margaret has 2 health boxes checked. Maybe she got sick or something. So here, the number of unchecked health boxes is 4. 11 plus 4 is 15. In that case, it says the baby would die and Margaret would lose 2 health. So that's how that works with the unchecked health boxes. Now, also, if you have the modern hospital tech, which is something the teacher gives out, you would add 8 to her roll. So if you had 11 plus 8, that's 19, plus the unchecked health boxes, that's way over 20. Everyone's fine. If you have a baby, though, that goes to, that you get the baby card. The instructor will give you a baby card. You can name your baby, but you have to raise your upkeep by 3. Now, sometimes you'll draw a card like this, sudden illness. A random family member suddenly becomes ill and loses 2 health. And if you look at the upper right of your board, there is a chart, and you roll on that chart this 8-sided dice. And if you don't have an 8-sided dice, just roll the 20-sided dice until you get a number 8 or under, and that determines who it was that got sick and loses the 2 health. So let's say you roll this dice, you get an 8. Thomas is the one who would lose the health. If someone is dead, or if you don't have the baby yet, you would just roll until you get a number that makes sense. Now, every turn, the instructor will hand out tech cards, and these have a impact on what happens to you. For example, the modern hospital cards, sudden illness cards no longer have a negative effect, and Margaret receives a bonus on difficult pregnancy cards. In the for the modern sanitation tech, cholera cards no longer have a negative effect. It also can help if your instructor has a dice tray to give you so that your dice will not fly everywhere, but if they don't, that's fine. So let's go ahead and start the game. So if you answer this question correctly, you gain a luck point, and you're not in competition with other groups. The groups decide amongst themselves what they think the correct answer is. So which of the following statements about the Industrial Revolution is false? A, it did not take off in most of Asia or Africa. B, in places like France, Russia, and Japan, it did not develop on its own, but the government was able to intervene to start the process. C, the development of the Industrial Revolution in the United States was similar to how it developed in Great Britain. And D, because Great Britain championed free markets, encouraged the industrialization of its colonies, such as India. And I will give the correct answer in 3, 2, 1. And the correct answer was D. So if you answer this question correctly, give yourself a luck counter and put it in the luck box. And what this allows you to do is to pay 1 luck to reroll a d20 1 time. And this is a reroll, so it means that you take that number, right? So let's say you rolled a 2 on one of those health checks. You can re-roll it, and hopefully you get above a 2. If you get below a 2, that's unfortunate, but hopefully you get above it. Now, if your instructor wants, they can say, oh, you can take the higher roll. But in any case, the default is it lets you re-roll a d20 1 time. So if you got the luck counter, it would go up there in the luck section. All right, first turn. So draw and resolve a card, and the instructor should pause the video here to help the groups kind of figure out their cards. Okay, now that you've figured out your cards, we have to do a little math, and this is a little complex, so please bear with me, but it will make sense after we go through a couple turns. So you add the upkeep, and that's the pounds needed to support each family member. You add that number in that box, and the school fees box, and you remember that number. If that number didn't change, you probably have 24, right? You start off with 21 in upkeep. Remember, it costs £3 for each family member. You have 7 family members. That's a total of 21. School fees, you have 3 kids in school. That costs £3. That's a total of 24. So your expenses are 24. Subtract that number from the pounds made through work box, your wages box, and that's probably 23. So 23 and minus 24 is -1, right? Now, if you had a positive number, you would put that many pounds in your savings. If you have a negative number, you remove pounds from savings. You probably have to remove 1. You probably had an upkeep of 24 and wages of 23, meaning that you are at a deficit, so you have to spend 1 from pounds. There's a chance you had more, and I'll come back to that later, the -1. Now, if you have a positive number, you put that many pounds in savings. So let's say you had wages 27 and then expenses of 24. 27 minus 24 is 3. You'd put 3 pounds in savings. If for some reason so go ahead, instructor, and help your students with this. If you still have a negative number, even after you spend all your pounds, just wait. I'll explain to you what happens. Okay, so now here's the thing. What is the negative if you can't pay your bills? What's the negative if you run out of money? If you have a negative number, even after you've spent all your savings, you have to roll for each pound you lack on that random box, the one that's 1 through 8, with each family member losing 1 health each time their name comes up. Right? So if someone is, basically this means that you don't have enough money, people aren't getting the clothes they need, the food they need, the medicine they need, they get sick, they get weak. And that's what that represents. So let's say that you, even after you spend all your money from savings, and you should always do that. There's no reason to keep savings. The only thing to spend money on is to keep people from getting sick and keep them in school. So you should spend your money. But if you spent all your money and you still owe like £3, you would roll the dice 3 times. And each family member whose name comes up on the chart, they would lose a health each time that name comes up, right? So if you are at -2, you would roll twice. If you're at -5, you'd roll 5 times. Then mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school. If you fill all those up, let the instructor know. And add an extra one if you have an adult at home. So right, if a child successfully completed a turn in school, mark an education box on there. And then add an extra one if you have an adult at home. Basically, the idea is the adult at home is helping to teach them, reading to them, playing with them. That helps them to learn. And that you should start off with an adult at home, Thomas. Now your instructor will hand out the cheap coal card. This is a new technology that's been developed, and what it means is now the unusually cold winter event cards no longer cause any ill effects. So if you have this card, and everyone should get one, and you draw the unusually cold winter card, you can just ignore that card. You don't draw again. All the cards are bad. Don't draw again, but it means that you don't suffer the ill effects. But you'll notice, though, of course, to get cheap coal, that involves child labor. So there's a trade-off here. So now here's where you can make a choice, right? You can move people around. You can move Adam or Margaret into the home if Thomas is not there. If you do that, lower wages, but children will gain more education. If you need more money, you can move a child out of school and into domestic service or the factory. If you do that, raise wages and decrease the student fees, but that child will not receive any education. If you have sufficient money, you can move a child out of domestic service or the factory into the school. If you do that, reduce wages and increase school fees. And I would encourage the instructor to pause here and help students who do decide to move people around to make sure they're getting the math right. It can be a little complex the first time we do this, but you make a change on the board, right, if someone moves. Right, let's move on to our next question. Which of the following is not a way that the Industrial Revolution improved people's quality of life as discussed in class? A, it allowed for the production of more of a good more cheaply. B, it led to the development of labor-saving devices that would help change women's position in society. C, because machines were so productive, there was less of a need for people to have children, leading to the population of Europe to decline. Or D, new products became available to new markets. I'll give the correct answer in 3, 2, 1. The correct answer was C. If you got that right, give yourself a luck counter. So now we're on our second turn. So you would draw and resolve a card. Then add the upkeep together with the school fees and remember that number. Subtract that number from the pounds made through work box. If you had a positive number, put that many pounds in savings. If you have a negative number, remove pounds from savings. If you still have a negative number, roll for each pound you lack on the random box, with each family member losing 1 health each time their name comes up. Mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school, and an extra one if you have an adult at home. The scourge of smallpox. Smallpox is a terrible disease that killed very large numbers of people, and among the people who it didn't kill, it would often leave permanent scars and could cause blindness. So very, very serious disease. There was, though, a vaccination, and the government was willing to give it away for free. So do you have the family vaccinated against smallpox? And it's either the whole family or none of the family. So that's a decision you need to make. Some claim vaccination is dangerous, while others say the benefits outweigh the risks. So you need to make the choice. And when please pause the video. And once everyone's made the choice, then please unpause it. So if your family is vaccinated, it goes well, except for one random family member who has a bad reaction. That family member must roll a d20 and add the number of unchecked health boxes. If their modified roll, that is, the number they rolled on the dice plus their number of unchecked health boxes, is a 1 to 6, they have a serious reaction and lose 2 health. On a 7 to 9, a minor reaction and they lose 1 health. And a 10 or above, they feel sick for a few days but don't lose any health. If your family was vaccinated, the instructor should give you a smallpox vaccination card. And if you draw the smallpox event card, this will give you an advantage on your roll. So now you can move. You can move Adam or Margaret into the home if Thomas is not there. If you do that, lower wages. If you need more money, you can move a child out of school and into domestic service or the factory. If you do that, raise wages and lower school fees. If you have sufficient money, you can move a child out of domestic service or the factory into the school. If you do that, reduce wages and increase school fees. How did the Industrial Revolution change travel? A, it made travel much safer and faster, but only for Europeans. B, it made travel much safer and faster, allowing people from all over the world to travel to wherever they could sell their labor at the highest price. C, it made travel more dangerous since steam engines had a tendency to explode. Or D, it made travel more expensive because advanced technology costs a lot of money. And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 is B. Turn 3. Draw and resolve a card. Add your upkeep and your school fees and remember that number. Subtract that number from the pounds made through work. If you have a positive number, put that many pounds in your savings. If you have a negative number, remove pounds from savings. If you still have a negative number, roll for each pound you lack on the random box, with each family member losing 1 health each time their name comes up. Mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school, and an extra one if you have an adult at home. Oh no! Someone stole coal and accusations are being made. Roll a d20. If the number is even, no one in your family was accused. If the number was odd, randomly select a family member. That person is accused and found guilty of theft. Remove them from the board. They neither work this turn nor can they attend school. They still must be fed. They can return to the board next turn as normal. You can use luck to re-roll. If the baby is randomly selected, roll again until one of the other family members comes up. But some good news, efficient steam engines have been developed. Your instructor should give you the efficient steam engines card. High food price cards no longer cause any ill effects. You now have the opportunity to move. You can move Adam or Margaret into the home if Thomas is not there. If you need more money, you can move a child out of school and into domestic service or the factory. If you have sufficient money, you can move a child out of domestic service or the factory into the school. Which of the following statements about the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain is false? A, it destroyed the economic wealth of the bourgeoisie, a class of craftspeople who manufactured everything by hand. B, it led the country to become less rural and more urban. C, it led to factory owners and merchants gaining more power in society. Or D, it opened up new opportunities for women to work outside their family unit. The correct answer in 3, 2, 1 is B. Turn 4. Draw and resolve a card. Add your upkeep and school fees box and remember that number. Subtract that number from the pounds made through work box. If you had a positive number, put that many pounds in savings. If you have a negative number, remove pounds from savings. If you still have a negative number, roll for each pound you lack on the random box, with each family member losing 1 health each time their name comes up. Mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school. Let me know if you fill those up, and add an extra one if you have an adult at home. Good news! Modern sanitation is developed. Cholera cards no longer cause any ill effects. The instructor should give you this card. You now have the opportunity for movement. You can move Adam or Margaret into the home if Thomas is not there. If you need more money, you can move a child out of school and into domestic service or the factory. If you have sufficient money, you can move a child out of domestic service or the factory into the school. Which of the following was not a problem arising from the Industrial Revolution as discussed in class? A, conditions in factories were often unsafe. B, the development of factories caused peasants to riot as they were left out of the economic development that industry brought. C, factories often produce large amounts of pollution. Or D, capitalist competition tended to force wages down in order to minimize costs and maximize profits. And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 is B. Turn 5. Draw and resolve a card. Add your upkeep and school fees box, remember the number. Subtract that number from the pounds made through work box. If you have a positive number, put that many pounds in your savings. If you have a negative number, remove pounds from savings. If you still have a negative number, roll for each pound you lack on the random box, with each family member losing 1 health box each time their name comes up. Mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school, and an extra one if you have an adult at home. Good news! Modern hospitals have been developed. Your instructor should give you a modern hospital tech card. You now have the opportunity to move. You can move Adam or Margaret into the home if Thomas was not there. If you need more money, you can move a child out of school and into domestic service or the factory. If you have sufficient money, you can move a child out of domestic service or the factory into the school. Which of the following was not a way that people reacted to problems arising from the Industrial Revolution? Was it A, public charity, B, trade unions, C, existentialism, or D, communism? And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1, existentialism. Turn 6. Draw and resolve a card. Add together your upkeep and school fees, and remember that number. Subtract that number from the pounds made through work box, your wages. If you have a positive number, put that many pounds in your savings. If you have a negative number, remove pounds from savings. If you still have a negative number, roll for each pound you lack on the random box, with each family member losing 1 health each time their name comes up. Mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school, and an extra one if you have an adult at home. Good news! Laws requiring new safety precautions in factories have been passed. Industrial accident cards no longer have any ill effects. And this image is not a reference to what was happening in England. It was something that happened in the United States, the Triangle fire, in which a fire broke out and the workers were locked in, and so they died. And so law was passed to bring in security, safety, so that you couldn't lock the workers inside. Movement. You can move Adam or Margaret into the home if Thomas is not there. If you need more money, you can move a child out of school and into domestic service or the factory. If you have sufficient money, you can move a child out of domestic service or the factory into the school. Which of the following is not a reason why Britain had an industrial revolution? A, banks allowed for the mobilization of capital to buy machines. B, lots of cheap coal and iron was available to build and power machines. C, British farmers were incredibly productive and able to feed factory workers without Britain having to import food. Or D, consumer demand from increased wealth brought by trade encouraged production. And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 is C. Right, we're on our final turn. Draw and resolve a card. Add your upkeep and school fees. Subtract that number from the pounds made through workbox. If you have a positive number, put that many pounds in your savings. If you have a negative number, remove pounds from savings. If you still have a negative number, roll for each pound you lack on the random box, with each family member losing 1 health each time their name comes up. Mark an education box for each child who completed a turn in school, and an extra one if you have an adult at home. So now you need to go through and note how much education your children have. If they have at least 4 education, they were able to find a decent job as a clerk or other job requiring basic literacy. If they have at least 5 education, they were able to find a pretty good job as a teacher or other job requiring literacy and knowledge. If they have at least 7 education, they were able to find a really good job as a doctor, lawyer, or other professional job. If they have at least 10 education, they were able to become Prime Minister of England. If at least 2 children have at least 4 education, at least one will support the parents and they will not live in poverty when they retire. So it would be good to pause here and to see where you're at, and then I'll raise the questions for reflection. How is life different for the Davies in the 19th century as opposed to the 17th? You can skip this one if you didn't play Can You Survive the 17th Century? How did things go for your family? Why do you think that way? What made life difficult? What made life better?